Luke chapter 10, there's a story. An expert in the law comes to Jesus, and he says to him, he says, Master, which is the greatest commandment? And in this story, in Luke chapter 10, it's interesting because Jesus doesn't answer his question. Well, he does, but he answers his question with a question. And he says to the expert of the law, how do you read it? And the expert of the law says to him, he says, well, I think the answer is to love the Lord thy God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said to him, he says, yes, you've answered well. That is the answer. And then the man says, well, and the scripture says that he says it in order to justify himself. He says, well, then who is my neighbor? And Jesus answers with a story. He said, a man was going down to Jericho, and on his way, he got robbed and he got beaten up. Jesus said on his way, he met a group of people, and those people were beater-uppers. They beat this man up and they left him for dead. He was bloodied and he was just passed out in the road. And Jesus said, and then another group passed by. He said a Levite and a priest came by. And instead of helping the man, they went to the other side of the street because they were busy about their religious business. And he said, Jesus says there's passer-uppers. There's some people that just don't want to get involved. It's just too messy. And then Jesus said there was a Samaritan man. Now that's significant because in Jesus' culture, the Samaritans, they were the outcast. They were despised by the Jews. And I love the fact that Jesus always uses Samaritans as the heroes in his story. Anytime he mentions a Samaritan, it's Jesus uses them as the hero. And this Samaritan, he comes by the man and he decides to be a picker-upper. That he looks at him. And I think maybe he looked at him and realized that could have been me. You see, when you've been beaten up before, you really have empathy for people that are being beat up now. If you've never been beaten up, you really don't realize the pain that's going on. But this Samaritan, he probably knew. And he picked him up. And he took care of him. It says he put oil on his wounds, and he took him to an inn, and he paid for him until he was well. So Jesus is answering the question, who is my neighbor? And he gives three options to the guy, to the expert of the law. He said there's beater-uppers, there's passer-uppers, and there's picker-uppers. And he says to that expert in the law, who do you think was the good neighbor? And the man said, the one who picked him up. But we can really apply that. It's not hard. It's not a leap. In this time where we live, where George Floyd was beaten up, we see in our world three kinds of people. We see beater-uppers, people that will jump on the bandwagon, blame it on him. We see passer-uppers, people that just don't want to get involved. It's too messy. I've got other things to do that are more important. And then we've got picker-uppers, folks that say, I have empathy for that. I want to help. What can I do? And I think the question Jesus is asking us today, what kind of neighbor am I? What kind of neighbor are you? When we stand before Jesus, how will he see us? As beater-uppers, that when people leave us, they feel worse about themselves, that they're in pain? Will he see us as passer-uppers? People that when people are around us, they feel like we don't even see them and we don't even care? Or will we be picker-uppers? People, when they leave us, will feel glad that we came by. We'll be thankful for our touch. We'll be healed by our words. We'll give God glory for our lives in their lives. And those are the choices. You can't pick another path. You're one of those three things. I am one of those three things. And we all get a choice today. I would encourage you, be a picker-upper. Life is way better when our lives enrich the lives of others. Thanks for joining me today on our Daily Hope Devotion.